Thank you very much. Call to order at 6 p.m. Welcome, Council, and welcome people that are virtually watching us. Item number 2, Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. Councilor Shinman, please.
Thank you. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the land on which we gather here today is the Treaty 9, 1905-1906 territory, the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. As we work towards reconciliation, may we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, review and note any changes on the agenda. Being none, we'll continue.
There are a couple.
I apologize.
It's all good.
Your hand was too low. Sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. So I did miss adding 2 bylaws. So the schedule of bylaws will change. So bylaw 2114 will actually be the 2025 water and sewer rates. Bylaw 2115 will be a bylaw to appoint an interim part-time chief administrative officer. And then bylaw 2116 will be the confirmatory.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Mover and a seconder, please. As amended. Councilor Peter, Councilor Shinman.
Be it resolved, the council does hereby approve the agenda as amended.
All in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Declaration number 5, pecuniary interest. Declaration of conflict of interest. There was not on my table. You may declare there, as you know by now, during the meeting. Thank you so much. Item number 6, 6.1, deputations, presentations, interest declaration, awards and open discussion. 6.1, presentation, tender awards and open discussion. Thank you.
So we have the presentation from KGS Group.
Yes. Good evening and welcome virtually to our Municipal Council. Mr. Mills is from KGS, Senior Municipal Engineer. And would Mr. Bayer be as well present?
Yep, he is also here.
Mr. Bayer is Associate Principal and Municipal Department Head, KGS Group, Hornepayne Drinking Water System, THM/HAA Reduction of Draft Report. Floors are yours, Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Jennifer, I need to share my screen.
Yes, I believe I did just make you presenter.
Okay. Got it. Yes, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Get back to the beginning here. Okay. Well, thank you again for having us to talk to you about what we've been working on here. What I'm planning to do is just go through some introductions, Sean and myself. I'd also like to know who the audience is, so if council doesn't mind, saying hi and letting us know who you are and what your background is, that would help me focus my my talk. From there, we'll go into existing system overview, a little bit of the background information, some of the science behind what's going on. We'll look at some of the operating data that we analyzed, developed some design criteria. We've gone through a number of options. We've shortlisted it to 3, so we'll discuss those options and the implications. And from there, we'll move into recommendations.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Sherman.
I have lost my window here. Just one. Okay, I guess I'll have to fly blind.
Thank you. Councillor Ted Sheneman here, first term on council. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Go ahead, Peter.
Peter Kissenegger, second term on council.
Go ahead, please.
Melinda Kistemaker, second term on council.
Drago Stefani, Councilor. This is my 3rd term, and at this juncture, I'm also Deputy Mayor at the moment. Thank you.
Very good. Is that everyone?
That's Council. JP, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Richard Bennett. I'm the acting treasurer. I work remotely, so I'm actually a retired treasurer and trying to help Hornepayne keep things going while their treasurer is off on leave.
Working for sport.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And then,
all right.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
and JP, Dwayne and I are here as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. There we go. All right. So from our end, we have Sean Byers, who's my manager and also the project manager for this one. He's been at it for about 24 years and has come to us by way of being a regulator working industrial areas and most happily in municipal because this is where he has stayed. Myself, I've been doing this for 23 years, primarily, well, all of it in consulting, doing wastewater and water design. I did have a little bit of a construction background, pipe fitting and heavy equipment and those fun things before I wound up doing this. Okay, so with your existing system, I'm assuming most people know what's going on, but I thought we would cover this just in the event that there were some unknowns to people. Your source water is Moon Lake. You have a submerged intake. It goes by gravity into the pump house where there are 4 vertical turbine pumps, some standby power, some instrumentation. And the capacity of that particular component is 1,990 cubic meters a day. Your water treatment plant, actually what I'll do here is I'll just there we go. Okay, so this this graphic I'm showing you here, this is the SCADA, the control system for your water treatment plant, pump station, and tower. So down here in the lower left is your intake pump station.
JP, it's still showing us just the first page.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we can see essentially the not a view mode, but the whole
just the title page.
background.
All right. Okay, I have to do something differently here. Okay, let's try that this way. Apologies, folks.
No worries. I've also had this issue.
I know.
But I don't remember how I fixed it. I'm so sorry.
Spend much of our day trying to defeat technology, right? All right. How is that? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. Excellent. Thanks for bearing with me.
No worries.
All right. So we've been through all of that. I'll get my pointer back. There we go. Okay, so I've got it up on my big screen here. It's going to look like I'm staring off into the distance, but this is what I'm looking at. So with respect to the water plant, then you've got pH control ahead of coagulation, ultrafiltration, disinfection, and contact time for that disinfectant, and distribution pumping. The rated capacity of the facility is 1,800 cubic meters a day. So these are just give you an idea of where things are. You have your block tank and the coagulation upstream of these membranes. Following the membranes, we hit it with, the guys hit it with chlorine. Goes into a contact chamber to get the primary disinfection, killing bacteria and viruses that may have gotten through. And then the distribution pumping system puts it into the distribution system as well as filling the tower. And as you're likely aware, you've got a small pressure zone near that tower that needs to be fed by pumps. So there we go. All right, so these capacities, I showed you those just so that I could give you an indication of, you know, what the plant is hydraulically capable of versus what the average actual demand is right now. You guys have a lot of spare capacity. Your peak flow hasn't even gotten to the plant capacity based on the records I've looked at. So getting back into some of the science behind things. So I wanted to share this one because it just gives you an idea of the complexity of some of the natural organic matter that we're dealing with. The largest fraction of that being total organic carbon, and within that there is DOC, which is a fraction of the TOC, BDOC, which is a fraction of DOC, and AOC, which is a fraction of that. The assimilable organic carbon is a concern often because it is a very simple form of organic carbon that is usually used by bacteria, by distribution from bacteria. These are the sorts of things we want to avoid. With this graphic also, there's a decreasing complexity and size of the organic matter. So what happens when we put organic carbon into contact with chlorine is we get some reactions happening. One of the many things that happens is we have trihalomethanes formed, which are carcinogen. They're regulated to a maximum allowable concentration of 100 micrograms per liter. We also have HAAs, which are primarily the concern for Hornepayne. They're regulated to maximum allowable concentration of 80 micrograms per liter. And the US EPA has recently lowered their limit to 60. This is relevant because Health Canada will often follow the lead of the US EPA when they're setting their standards. So with the source water, with Blue Lake, it's got a total organic carbon that hovers around 10. All of that is dissolved organic carbon, which is pretty typical for a surface water. TOC and DOC aren't regulated, only the products that come out of that reaction are regulated. So with respect to the records that we reviewed, the THMs that Hornepayne is seeing, the data you have on record, generally says there's low levels of THM. Sometimes it gets up to the limit. Most times it doesn't. The HAA problem is significant, though. We're seeing high levels in the data. It often exceeds the limit. As you can see in the graphic here, we've got our regulated limit, and these are all the sample results that we put together from your data. Since 2022, within here, you can see almost all of these have exceeded the limit. So that, initially that suggested to me, was there some sort of operational or treatment change in going through the data and the information? It's not apparent if there was. So haloacetic acid formation is influenced by TOC and DOC chlorine, as we've discussed. Increases in either of those is more fuel for the fire. So those would, if either of those goes up, it results in an increase in the HAAs. Given adequate time or additional time, your HAA can increase because that's more time for reaction. Temperature is a factor because it speeds the rate of reaction. And pH is also a consideration because depending on where you are in the pH scale, it will produce more or less HAAs. Now, the trick with the pH is, because we're dealing with haloacetic acids, pH going lower, becoming more acidic, produces more HAAs. Going the other way with it isn't really an option because that will begin to form more THMs. So you got to kind of a balance, have to find a balance between these two. So reviewing the operating records, then we examined all the parameters that are influencing HAA formation in and around the measurement dates, the dates that the system was sampled for HAAs. You can see we have some data missing. So what we looked at was the TOC-DOC. There was a very small variation seasonally. Normally there is some impact by seasonal effects, by atmospheric effects. Large runoff generating storms can flush organics into the lake. We looked at the chlorine concentration, and more to the point, we looked at the changes in chlorine concentration. So as that is burned up in reaction, we looked at how that, how those changes happened. Temperature, of course, we do have a seasonal variation. Tower level we looked at because that has an impact on our hydraulic residence time, or the time available for reaction. We looked at the pH at the plant. They're doing a good job of optimizing and controlling that. We looked also at UVT, so ultraviolet transmittance, which is a surrogate measure of DOC. And then we also examined turbidity, which can be a telltale indicator of additional matter being brought into the system. So some of the issues we encountered was that we were missing some parameters from one event, and we were missing different parameters for another event. We had some trouble with the tower level measurements to calculate HRT. The issues with that was the level was jumping around in the data. When you've got 262,000 points you're working with, it's not easily filtered out. So what happened there is because the measurements jumped around, we were getting unrealistic flow rates into and out of the system. Like we're talking 30,000 liters in a 2-minute interval, which we can just, we can look at that number and realize that's not realistic. The UVT data that we examined was only recently added to the monitoring regime. We did have some intermittent spot measurements there. So here's an example of what we were working with. The HAAs are in blue. So normally what we would expect is as chlorine decay increased, we would expect HAAs to increase, but in this case they've gone down. As our hydraulic residence time increases, we would expect the HAAs to increase, and only in some cases did that happen. So you could see there's not a lot of relationships we can derive from this. We can get general trends, but getting a mathematical relationship between these parameters just isn't feasible with a data set of this size. Yeah, so like as I was saying, there's no clear correlation some of the sampling that was done all in the same day, which, you know, works okay for the source water and for the water treatment plant. But what you sample from the tower on that same day was probably from, you know, 2 to 6 days earlier than the day you're sampling, right? So you're not really capturing what's going in, you're capturing what's coming out. So the reliability of the analysis and the relationships between these, I mean, it was impacted by these measurements, the variability and some of the missing information. So one of the things we wanted to focus on here, I guess you'll kind of call it the low-hanging fruit. Certainly the most cost-effective option would be for some operational change to impact the formation of these. It's advantageous because it's already using the existing equipment. It's just doing it differently. So in review of the operating data, the Aqua is doing a good job from what I can tell. Their coagulation pH optimization is well managed. They're getting about 50% of the DOC out, which is very normal, on the high end of normal for coagulation. The tower level data wasn't absolute due to the variability in the measurements, but it did give us a general trend where there were periods of low demand, and so water staying in the tower for a long time, followed by periods of high demand where the water would be drawn out of the tower. We saw those spikes in HAA. One of the issues with the tower is that there is a shared inlet and outlet, so it's not accounting for the mixing that would take place. It's a first in, last out scenario, right? So as the tank fills, that water at the top gets older, and it doesn't stop getting older until it comes out the bottom again. So that, and in that respect, you could have stagnant zones in the water tower, and so we think management of those storage volumes to minimize that amount of time that the water spends in the tower would help, but we don't know at this point, given this level of information, if it would solve the issue. One of the upsides, one of the good things, it's not all bad news, one of the good things is that we were able to derive a relationship between DOC and UVT. Very good correlation, almost 90%. So this allows us then to use UVT as a surrogate measure to estimate DOC. That's a good thing because UVT is very quickly and easily measured at the water plant. DOC you have to send off to the lab, and it takes a week to 2 weeks to get the information back. So using this this chart, we looked at what is our target? What do we need to get down to? Given the magnitude of the problem you guys have, I would say we're recommending that we target 1 milligram per liter or less, which will correspond to a very, very high UVT, 99 to 100%, which sounds like a lot, but it is achievable. Some of the other facilities I've worked with have been able to get those numbers. So for our design criteria, typically what we would do is use a 20-year design horizon, so 2025 taking us to 2045. We took the trends in the records for flow, and we extrapolated those out to 2045. Looks like you're sitting good. You're still less than the plant capacity, so don't anticipate any, major upgrades that would be required for other systems. One of the things we wanted to do was also future-proof Hornepayne against some of the regulations, some of the changing regulations that might be coming. So we're looking at a HAA target of 60. And for these options that we examined, we wanted to match the plant capacity rather than the projected demand, because then you don't have to go through multiple upgrades. Worst thing that could happen here is that you suddenly have a lot of growth and demand increases beyond the capacity of whatever upgrades we had done. So that's why we lean towards matching the plant capacity. So you can see, I don't know how many people were able to make it through that report. I know it was some pretty dry reading. My apologies. I tried to make it as engaging as I could, but there's a lot of science and chemistry going on here. So we looked at a number of different options. You can generally group these into ones that avoid HAA formation. We also looked at ones that are that help to prevent or remove the precursors so that there isn't the fuel for the fire, so to speak, so that there aren't organics to react with the chlorine. As you can see along the top of that chart there, we looked at a number of factors, and to take all of these options and condense them down into something that could be analyzed in more detail, we shortlisted it to the three options I'm going to share. So our first option is called MIEX. It's an ion exchange resin, not unlike what people have in their home water softeners. This stuff is a little bit magnetic, so it helps the resin to glom together and to settle out easier. What this does is it reduces our DOC. We trade out the chloride on the resin for the DOC, releases chloride into the water, captures the DOC on the resin. With this particular configuration, we have the option of continuous regeneration. So if you're thinking, comparing this to, say, a household water softener, they regenerate by batch. So a whole bunch of salt goes in, it sits there, and then everything is washed out. In this case, the way this one works is it grabs the media off the bottom, the stuff that is settled out to the bottom, and regenerates it at a slower rate and a smaller volume, and puts it back into the contactor. This method, this technology is really good at getting DOC, getting the disinfection, the disinfection byproduct precursors out. Depending on the quality of the water and the makeup of the organics in it, you can get from 60 to 80% capture. The downside with some of this is that there are other ions that might be present in the water that will compete for these attachment sites. So what that does is then your media exhausts faster, and you don't have as many sites available for capturing DOC. This is a different version, same stuff, different version from the manufacturer. This is rather than a continuous regeneration, this is a batch system. So very similar to the household softeners, just on a much larger scale. So where this would go in the system is we would put it in ahead of the coagulation. The advantage to that is it grabs a lot of the organics. It takes down your coagulant dosage because there's less DOC, there's less reaction with chlorine. Another advantage to your downstream processes would be some of the maintenance on your membranes that currently has to happen because of organic fouling and chemical fouling would be reduced because again we don't need as much coagulant. When you couple it with the coagulation, though, you can get to that 90% removal that we really want. Another upside to this stuff is it comes with automation and controls, which can then be integrated into the plant-wide system more easily and gives operators eyes to the inside of the process. Other advantages that we talked about there was lower waste rates, which forgot to finish that point there, but lower waste rates, which have less of an impact on your sewer system by having a low flow rate out of the plant. It also has less of an impact on your wastewater treatment plant due to the saline water getting there. Downside to this is of course we're going to need a building expansion to house equipment like this, and the capital cost is more than an operational change. Option 2 we looked at was granular activated carbon, and as bizarre as it sounds, activated carbon is really good at getting organic carbon. This is usually a coal or a coconut or a wood base that is activated with extreme heat. You can see in the graphic to the left there is a lot of surface area available on this stuff. This is why it works so well. So what happens is as the DOC comes through the water column, it's introduced to the media. It permeates into these pores, into these fissures, and is absorbed onto the surface of the GAC. So this is a little different than absorption. Adsorption is just stuck together. Absorption is one dissolving into the other. So that's why I keep using the word adsorption. This media can be housed in a pressure filter or gravity filter, and as with the ion exchange, there are other ions and compounds that compete for the attachment sites, and so that may reduce the capacity of this. So where we would be looking at putting this is after the membrane, but before chlorination. Just using some rough and tumble numbers, we might need up to 95 cubic meters of media. So that's 8 filters, 8 feet in diameter, 8-foot sidewall. So, not an insignificant amount of media. On the bright side, this is very simple to operate. You run the water in, and it captures the DOC, and you pick up the water coming out. You may need to backwash it periodically just to redistribute the media, to break up any channels that have formed through the media. But really, there isn't a ton of day-to-day maintenance required. So upside, simple to operate. Taking that organic carbon out will reduce the chlorine demand. It will produce more stable residuals. It's not going to impact any of the other chemical usage upstream. These systems would typically be sized for a year to 2 years of operation before you have to change out the media. So the advantage that gives you then is if you've got these in series, is you always get a really good quality of water coming out until that media is exhausted, and then there's once all those attachment sites are taking up, it's you're not going to get anything more out of it. With some very large facilities, they will regenerate media on site. It's usually done with very high temperature steam, in some cases fire, to reactivate the media. In this case, for a smaller installation such as yours, it would most likely be regenerated off-site, which means the media would have to be taken out of the filters and then replaced with new stuff. So with the footprint on this thing, we would certainly need to have a building expansion. Option 3 is kind of a agglomeration of a couple different approaches. We're relying on the cumulative effect of these changes. So what we've analyzed, is the option of raising the intake with using potassium permanganate as an oxidant, followed by UV potassium permanganate upstream of the coagulant. Downstream of the ultrafiltration, we would look at putting the UV. Chloramine would be used to provide a secondary or a distribution system residual. And then we would also be looking at managing the levels in the tower. The issue with one of the issues with chloramines is if the dosage isn't quite right, it can produce undesirable byproducts such as dichloramines and nitrogen trichloride, both of which have a smell and a taste, and nitrification, nitrates are not good for anyone. So that's one of the issues I've listed here. The trick with raising the intake, there is a space in there where the existing intake could be taken off. You could put in a short piece and rebolt everything, but that's going to have to be done underwater, which makes it difficult. And because there's work going on near the shore and within the water, there may be some environmental impact there. The upside of this is a lot of the equipment that would be used, in particular the chemical feed systems, are known to the operators, very familiar, similar type of setup. Oh, sorry, I've lost my train of thought here. Okay, so familiar products, familiar systems to the operators. Couple of the the tricks with this is that the UVT is going to impact the performance and the efficacy, how well the UV disinfects, because that's typically indicative of as the UVT number goes up, it typically indicates there's more organics or there's particulate matter, or something is getting through the filtration system. Now, being that you have coagulation ahead of an ultrafiltration membrane, we would expect it to be pretty good. But the problem with ultrafiltration is that while it does a really great job of taking particles out of the water, it won't do anything for the dissolved species, which is why we're seeing DOC come through it right now. With the additional chemical feed equipment, we might need a building expansion. We do know that for the ammonium hydroxide that would be combined with the liquid chlorine to make chloramines, it does need kind of its own space and its own ventilation system because of the ammonia. Things need to stay sealed and kind of away from other chemicals. The management of the tower, we were talking about this, about trying to minimize that residence time in there. One of the implications, more so from the tower, is that there may be a minimum volume that you have to keep in the tower just for fire events, to make sure there is enough water available. So that may impact the management, or the impact may impact the impact of managing the tower levels. Because we have that first in, last out piping configuration on the tower, it would be good to have separate inlets, separate outlets, to make sure we're turning over that reservoir. We're bringing fresh water in and mixing with the rest of the volume. This is going to be difficult to achieve if the tower cannot be taken offline. Downside to this is also that with additional chemical feed equipment systems, there's going to be more maintenance, more chemical costs because they're being used, and it's going to require more operator intervention. So we were able to come up with some recommendations based on the reviews and the analysis of options. I think one thing that's really important here is, because that data set is incomplete and isn't large enough to draw meaningful conclusions, I think we need to look at what we're recommending is that additional testing and monitoring be completed. As part of that, we need to know better some of the dimensions of the tower, to take some of that fluctuating error out of the level sensors, so that we can get more reliable indicators of volumes, and more importantly, change in volumes, so flow in, flow out. It is possible to develop a design for upgrades, but if we do this without the additional information, it's going to take some assumptions, and our concern is that with those assumptions, even knowing as much as we do, it won't be right-sized. It doesn't take into account the other factors that are in the other competing factors that are in the water. It may not be properly sized, so that may make it more costly if it's oversized. It may make it not effective enough if it's undersized, or even worse, both. As I mentioned there briefly, influence of the other chemicals and ions and compounds in the water that might compete with DOC removal. We don't know what's in there. There's not sufficient data, because performance is always site and source water specific. It's really, really important to know what else is in there. So for these, to get this to be site specific, and to give the correct data that we need, bench scale testing, pilot scale testing is always recommended. And then we can take into account the idiosyncrasies of the source water. We know that infrastructure funding is needed. I'd say at this, in our experience at this level of detail, with too many unknowns, it's unlikely to be successful. And the issue with that is, once we get funding, it's really hard. I won't say it's impossible, but it is extremely difficult to get that number increased. So one of the best ways we can work around that is to gather this information, so that we're have properly sized designs, so we can demonstrate to the funding agencies the life cycle costs and how you guys are going to pay it back, and that ongoing operation is affordable. Those are some of the few of the things that we found with other clients to be very helpful in their submissions to secure funding. So as far as next steps, I think, because we're dealing with public money, we have to look at the low-hanging fruit, right? We gotta look at the lesser cost options first, to see if we can get the performance we need, or if it is going to not be enough. I mean, I can confidently say that a lot of these things we're proposing will make an improvement, but is it going to be enough? That's the big question, right? So in order to determine that, I'd recommend we do some bench scale testing of potassium permanganate ahead of coagulation to see how much of that organic carbon we can bring out of solution and into a particle that we can remove. I think we should also be looking at UVT measurements if we're going to pursue a UV disinfection unit. And as I noted earlier, we need some better information on the tower so that we can accurately determine the time that water is spending in there. So as part of this examination, some of the parameters we would also monitor, send to the lab for testing, is an HAA formation potential, THM formation potential, and nitrification tests, so that we can see, are these going to do enough given time for reaction and for mixing, reaction between the parameters. Are we going to be able to keep it within the limits? For option one, for the MIAX, the supplier always offers to bench test the process for samples, and they take that information, they project it to a full-scale system. They'll give us, sizing, footprints, operating and maintenance costs. It's a really nice offer that they have. Typically, if we were to go ahead with their product, then they would often credit that to the purchase price. But that's not to say they won't do it for free. That's something we could find out for certain. Hornepayne would need to gather the samples and pay the shipping. That's really the extent of the requirement for this one. Option two, with the GAC, I think bench scale testing could be done to establish the absorption and the exhaustion rates so that we can properly size that system to make sure that that there is enough media there to bring DOC down to where it needs to be. So from those next steps, I'd recommend either revisiting the report to add to it, or supplement it with a bench scale, pilot scale testing report to support more detailed information, to prepare more accurate costs and sizing, and to prepare Hornepayne for that eventual funding application. Okay, so that's my presentation for you. I always want to thank my clients for their trust. I mean, this is an important system, and we never take it for granted. So we appreciate you putting your trust in us to help you find a solution. Okay, let's see if I can get back to the.
Thank you.
Okay, see if I can find everybody again. Hey, there you are.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions, input from council, please, on the report? Please go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mills, for the report. I'd be lying if I said I understood 100% of it, but I got the gist of it. And I guess I'd like to know the lowest cost option, but we really can't do that until we do more testing, I guess, to see what's actually going to work.
That would be my recommendation. You know, we know at this point with the information we have, we know what can make an improvement. We can't quantify it just yet. So I think if some bench scale testing could be done by the Aqua guys, and I think those low hanging fruit ones could be done at the plant. Maybe with some coordination and direction. But I mean that would help us to determine if that is going to be enough.
Can I have a follow-up? Please go ahead, Phil.
One more question.
Sure.
Being that this is a byproduct of the chlorination process that we're getting these contaminants, this must not be just unique to Hornepayne. Is this something that's province-wide?
Oh, yeah, no, this is not unique at all. We see, well, even like I'm based in Saskatoon. We see a lot of disinfection byproducts out here, and it's always a result of organic carbon in the source water. So yeah, you guys aren't alone in this, for sure.
Thank you. Councilor?
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
So a few questions. What puzzles me a bit is the inconsistency of the HAA levels, like the ups and the downs. Like if it's at the source coming in before it's chlorinated, what's changing in there? We're drastic changes when in that graph there's drastic changes to be able to have that. So that was I have several questions, so maybe we'll go one at a time.
Okay, well, let's start with that one. I don't think it's the source water that is I don't think it's changes in the source water that are driving these different these different results. I think a lot of it has to do with the time that is available for reaction as a result of storage in the tower. That seemed to be the most consistent correlation of change between the two. But as well, there's a lot of other things like temperature, pH, and that all impact the amount that could be formed.
Okay, follow up. Then in the tower itself, like if we think about home hot water heater, we often have levels. We often have where there's a hot spot and things. So, and we have anode rods in there. Would turbulence in there, an aerator in the tower, be able to try to alleviate some of that stagnation? I mean,
I think mixing it with, and I don't know, like I wouldn't say aeration, but perhaps a submersible mixer or a water jet that gets this this stuff mixing. By mixing the stuff that has been in there with some fresh stuff, I mean, you're kind of balancing out the concentrations, the potential for formation, by mixing fresh water with the old water. Now, as I said, is that going to be enough? We don't know yet. But I think I think that's a good idea you have, and I think that's something that would.
Okay, and again, we've been over 24 months in excess of the MOE limits. At what point do they say enough is enough? Like at what point are we in danger of them saying stop?
Oh, I would have not to make light of it, but I would have guessed 20 months ago.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it is a pretty serious situation. I think you know, you guys are fortunate in that, you know, the regulator is cutting you some slack. You know, and I think uh, what we've seen over here is, you know, with a lot of our clients, our regulators will, you know, be a little less militant about it when they are working towards a solution. So, you know, the fact that you guys are working towards a solution, I think is helpful as well.
But an observation, we're in, our numbers are horrendous when we look at the levels of what's acceptable. I mean, at what point do we say, you know, we're now liable, we're on the point of causing danger? In my small operator's license, when I run it at our camp, I'm immediately, they're on the phone immediately. When my test goes in, I'm called immediately. Hey, your HEAs are out of whack. What's going on? At what point do we become accountable and say, hey, you know, we need to do something faster to be able to, you know, than yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, there was, you know, in reviewing a lot of the reporting, a lot of the inspection reports, it was noted in there. They did ask for, you know, Hornepayne to do exactly what you've done just now by having it, you know, having it analyzed, having you know, having a report put together. I think it would be a good idea to share this with them, to show them that you're working towards a solution. Yeah, you know, I don't know your regulator in particular. I do know some of the guys out there, but I don't know your particular inspector. Sorry, I just wandered off there. It has been noted, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. They are aware of it. They have said you need to fix it. And yeah, should it be fixed? Absolutely should be. But I don't think any of us here would say otherwise.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Good, Council.
I'd just like to know how much more time you need to finalize your report. Like to be able to give us some direction on what we have to do.
Well, I think a key element in that is going to be the bench testing.
And how long was, can you explain, when you talk about the bench testing, are we talking about another 6 months? Are we talking about, you know what I mean? Like, what's the range for this when you're talking about bench testing?
Yeah, I don't have, I'm sorry, I don't have a definitive answer on that. What I could do is talk to the supplier, as well as talk to the aqua guys and see, you know, what the turnaround on this could be. As far as I know, they have the right testing equipment at the water plant. So I don't, you know, I think it would take, you know, a little bit of coordination. I would have to work through it with them. But I don't, you know, I would expect to have it addressed within 2-3 months.
When, can I ask?
Please go ahead.
When, the other thing that seemed to show in your report is the seasonal part. When you're talking about the seasonal, like when your water levels are going up higher or lower, or whatever, say we made a decision now and that was, and then it shows up with others, should we have a full season look at? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, except that if we're looking at seasons, have you already noticed when it's really, really bad for us here?
Yeah. So I've looked at the several years of data that Aqua's gathered for the TOC and DOC. It really doesn't change much from year to year. So I think, you know, as far as the source water goes, it's fairly consistent. It's a matter of, you know, are there like a you know, runoff producing events? They will flush a lot of organic matter into the lakes, and I think, you know, Moonlight Lake in particular really doesn't have a lot of flow to it. So, you know, when stuff goes in there, it typically stays in there. As far as the seasonal influences go, I think, you know, it's more so related to the temperature, which fuels the speed of the reaction. You know, is that absolute? No, there's other things contributing to that as well, and we've seen high results in the middle of winter when the temperature is low. So, you know, it's one of a number of influencing factors, but certainly not the only one.
Okay.
So I have, you know, in talking to Aqua about this additional testing and monitoring, I have said, hey, give us a season, right? Give us a year. And the reason I went that route is so that we can try and catch some of those climatic influences, right? See if we can gather the data around rainfall events, that kind of stuff. And my hope is that with that complete set of parameters, the influence of temperature, the influence of pH, you know, all those different influences can be quantified, right? Because then if we can do that, then we can say, okay, if we change, let's say we change the DOC, well, that's going to give us this level, right? If we, you know, if we reduce the residence time in the tower, well, that's going to give us, you know, this level. So it's certainly not an easy answer. I think we can all agree that if this was an easy one, it probably would have been solved quite some time ago. I'm not. Did I answer your question, or did I just wander around?
I'm good with that, thank you.
Yeah, if I could wrap it up, I mean, let's put it in layperson terms. We have a problem. We have to find a solution, and best possible financial solution to repair the problem. Because you're right, this report is meant for a chemistry major, university level. There's no question. It's complex. I understand the complexity of it. I also understand, as Councilor Shimon said, the complexity of the problem. We need a solution. As Councilor Belinda said, I think the time frame is crucial that we pinpoint, because right now you're saying there's many variables. You really can't tell me exactly, according to the studies up to this date, that you could pinpoint 100%. There is areas that you're going to be looking at. So obviously, from your perspective, professional perspective, you need more studies, benchmark scale, whatever you want to call it. So I think you mentioned 2 to 3 months. I just want to confirm that's the possibility of the realm that we will get some direction as council to proceed.
Well, what I will do is tomorrow I'll reach out to some suppliers and see what their turnaround would be. I think ICSM with the MIAX process, they're quite used to doing this. They do it for a lot of clients. I would imagine that, you know, it's a toss up between them and Aqua, who could get done first. But you know, if I had to put my money on somebody, and, you know, not saying anything bad about Aqua, I think the guys have done great. I think ICSM would be probably our quickest route.
And the interesting part, if I may say, first I'm hearing the heat has an effect on it, but then it doesn't because it happens in wintertime. So that's really complex then, obviously, complex chemistry, because
Yeah.
it's not zeroed into the specific problem of heat. It associated with that heat, correct? However, there's other variables.
Yes. Yeah. And those other variables have an influence, right? Like all of those things have some influence. So when you've got different combinations of them, you get different results.
Right.
And that's the hard part to nail down is, how can we predict these results? So,
Good, Doctor.
A question more out of curiosity.
sure.
This is a problem that's obviously it's all over the place. How much of it is due to these parameters that are set up for the different organic matters, not as because it's from it's a product of our chlorination and whatnot. Is this because of since Walkerton and all the new regulations? Like, did we always have this problem? Or because I'm just thinking, Hornepayne's been incorporated for over 90 years now, and has the rules changed? And maybe that's why I think the government's got to realize we can't just correct this tomorrow. And I think if we go at it too quick, and as Mr. Mills alluded to, the funding, we got to have it right the first time because it's going to end up costing us more.
Exactly.
So I asked the question: is this because of the new changes since Walkerton, or is this something that the federal is it the change in the system, or is it just something that we picked up on in the last decade?
This is a little different than the Walkerton situation, but a similar idea, in that a regulatory agency, in this case the US EPA, recognized that these things were being formed, recognized that they were potential problems, and started to regulate them. And Health Canada, I said, often takes their cues from the US EPA. And as these issues came to the forefront, and as mitigation measures were developed, they started to put limits and started to put requirements on it. I don't know if you guys have heard of PFAS, which is it's a mouthful. Polyfluoroalkyl. They're residual. You're seeing a lot of press about them in the States because people have just started to recognize that these things are in the water supply and these things are bad for us. And so now they're starting to set limits. They're starting to develop technologies to take it out. So this is very similar to how this is developed for
JP.
Yep.
JP, could I step in as well?
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. Appreciate Council and Worship's attention on this matter, and I support JP and all the work that he's done here. My name's Sean Byer, and I work with KGS and JP as well. Just to maybe add some flavor to that question you just asked, the other thing about it is fundamentally, surface water has been chlorinated, from a long period of time, and the actual investigation and the research into the impacts continues to grow. And so say at one point in time, the limit was 350, right, on triethylamethane. And then with additional research over a decade or two, all of a sudden it became 100. And as JP mentioned on HAAs, they're talking about it going down from 80 to 60. And so it's the extent of research into it as well that does play a role in how fast the regulatory bodies move. And so I hope that adds a little bit of flavor to that question, which is a very good one.
Thank you. I find it funny how it's the science of the day, and I understand how it changes. At one time, smoking probably wasn't all that bad for you either. But we learn as we go. It's just, I'm just looking at a water machine right now in our council chambers, and that's one of the biggest industries we have, and it's unregulated. Yet we're allowed to drink that with no issue at all. But we have water that we're paying an absolute fortune for, and then the cost is just going to go up 2 or 3-fold here, and there's no end to it.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I'm not a fan of buying bottled water solely because it's not regulated, right?
Yeah.
I like to have a little bit of chlorine in my water.
Me too. Okay. Any further questions from members of council? No. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mills, for your in-depth presentation.
Thank you.
If you keep Jennifer Hill and Deputy Clerk in touch, what's going on, she'll certainly relate your messages to members of council and Mayor that's on vacation at the moment. And we must proceed, there's no question, but very prudently to proceed. As a councilor said, when will regulations change again? You have to cover all the aspects as you can appreciate because of the cost. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I also appreciate your patience very much as I poured through this data and put the report together. And again, my apologies. I couldn't make it an interesting read.
It's interesting, believe me. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Good night. Yes, please.
So, just prior to passing the resolution to acknowledge receipt, does council want, let's say they find out that they can get the testing done in a month or two, does council want them to proceed with doing the testing now or wait until the March 12th meeting to bring it back to approve moving forward?
I want them to go forward.
I just don't want to move too fast and end up driving the cost up.
I think we have to wait.
Patience is a virtue in this one.
Okay.
March, you again, only one member. March 12th would be
Fine.
fine because we waited so long, and this is February 26th, and I think another couple weeks it would hurt. That would be my question. But I like to get a consensus. That's a good question. Thank you.
We'll need a resolution for moving forward, so I want to make sure if council wanted that to happen now, we have that.
For March is wonderful. That's
perfect.
Thank you. So may I have a mover, please, and a seconder for the presentation? Councilor Peter, Councilor Shinneman.
Be it resolved, the council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the draft report for the THM HAA reduction for the Hornepayne drinking water system as provided by KGS Group.
All in favor? Opposed? Being none? Carried. Thank you. Item number 7 under 7.1, correspondent action items. Mover, please, and a seconder. Councilor Belinda, Councilor Shinneman.
Be it resolved, the council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the 2024 annual monitoring report for the processed organic waste sewage sludge disposal site as prepared by Pinchin Ltd.
Any comments or input? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Under item 7.2, may I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Peter, Councilor Shinneman.
Be it resolved, the council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the 2022 to 2024 triennial monitoring report for the Hornepayne waste disposal site as prepared by Pinchin Ltd.
All in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Item 7.3, may I have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councilor Shinneman, Councilor Peter.
Whereas tuberculosis, TB, remains one of the world's deadliest infectious diseases affecting millions globally each year, and whereas World TB Day, observed annually on March 24th, aims to raise public awareness about the devastating health, social, and economic impacts of tuberculosis and to accelerate efforts to end the disease, And whereas the global Light Up for TB campaign, initiated in 2017, encourages communities to illuminate buildings and landmarks in red to show solidarity in the fight against tuberculosis. And whereas the Northeastern Public Health, NEPH, has invited the Township of Hornepayne to participate in the Light Up for TB initiative. And whereas the township does not currently have color changing signage, but remains committed to exploring ways to participate in this important awareness effort. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne formally supports World TB Day and the Light Up for TB campaign, and directs staff to investigate alternative options to visibly demonstrate support, including but not limited to installing red light bulbs at the township entrance or other appropriate locations.
Thank you. Comments, input from council? All fine? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.4. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Shinman, Councilor Peter.
Whereas municipalities face increasing infrastructure demands with limited revenue sources, and whereas the province collects the land transfer tax, LTT, and the federal government collects the goods and services tax, GST, on property transactions with no direct allocation to municipalities, and whereas redistributing a portion of these revenues would provide sustainable funding for local infrastructure without adding new tax burdens. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby support the Town of Aurora's request for the provincial and federal governments to allocate a portion of LTT and GST revenue to municipalities for infrastructure funding. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister, the Premier of Ontario, the Ontario Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you. Input, comments from council? I think it's an excellent idea. I like it.
This has been around for a long time now, like,
Since Noah's Ark, I
come
know.
on, just fix it.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Thank you. Correspondence information only. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Shinman, Councilor Peter.
Be it resolved that council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the correspondence information only package attached to the agenda of the regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025.
Thank you. Council's input, comments on the information only, please go ahead.
If I may, sorry, my throat is gross. I wanted to bring attention to item 8.2. The Thunder Bay District Municipal League is inviting comment from council prior to March 6th on the draft constitution and draft policy manual. So if council has any comments, please send them to me by, actually didn't determine a date yet. I would say by March 5th, end of day, and I can forward all of that to the Thunder Bay District Municipal League.
Thank you for your update. Any further comments? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Item number 9 under 9.1, committee board and updates. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Shinman, Councilor Peter.
Be it resolved, the council does hereby acknowledge receipt of the committee and board meeting minutes attached to the agenda of the regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025.
Thank you. Comments, input? Okay, and under 9.2, council committee updates. Please, Councilor Shinman.
Thank you. We had a hospital board meeting yesterday, and Dr. Cameron said he's has locums till the end of June and hopes by the end of next month to be able to have the whole year covered. So he said he's a good response from those that have been here and they want to come back. Staffing is settled down a little bit, less agency nursing and things, so things aren't, and right now they're striving towards more accreditation and stuff. So There's lots of stuff happening.
Thank you, positive news. Thank you
Yep.
for the update.
I got nothing to add.
Thank you.
I don't have anything
Thank
right
you.
now.
And I just have a quick one. I have a library board meeting coming up on March 4th, Tuesday at 5:30. Thank you. New order of business under item 10.1. May have a please a mover and a seconder. Councilor Peter, Councilor Schillman, please.
Whereas the Township of Hornepayne recognizes the importance of supporting immigration initiatives and fostering community growth within the Superior East region, and whereas the Steering Committee for Immigration is being established to guide and oversee initiatives related to immigration, settlement, and integration within the region, and whereas Councilor Drago Stefanik has expressed interest and commitment to representing the Township of Hornepayne on this committee, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby appoint Councilor Drago Stefanik as the Township's representative on the Steering Committee for Immigration in the Superior East region.
Any comments or input? Being none, all in favor? Opposed, being none, carried. Thank you. Item 10.2, may I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Belinda, Councilor Schillman, please.
Whereas the Northern Credit Union, NCU, has been charging an inactive fee of $6 per month on the Township's Recreation Committee savings account, and whereas the acting treasurer has not found any reason that these funds need to be kept separate in this account as recreation funds were tracked separately in the Recreation Reserve account, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne does hereby authorize that the remaining funds from this account be transferred to the Township's current Northern Credit Union operating account and the savings account be closed.
Thank you. Any comments, input?
Just a comment. I've seen this before with the CIBC, and it's just what a terrible thing the bank likes to do. They're charging you $6 a month for absolutely nothing.
Concur.
Coming out of volunteers' account. It's amazing.
It's kind of sad.
It really is.
Thank you for your comment. Please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure if.
Okay, Richard, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. No comments? Thank you very much.
Nothing to add. Just here if there was any questions.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed, being none, carried. Excuse me. Item 10.3, mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Peter, Councilor Schillman.
Whereas the Township of Hornepayne owns and operates the Hornepayne Community Arena, which includes a canteen space available for rental and operation, and whereas the Township has previously issued a request for proposals, RFPs, for the operation of the arena canteen, but due to a lack of applicants in the last several attempts and the absence of a CAO, the process was put on hold. And whereas there's recently been renewed interest from potential operators regarding the rental of the canteen space, and whereas it is in the Township's interest to seek proposals through a transparent procurement process to determine if a qualified operator can be secured. Therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornepayne hereby authorizes staff to issue a request for proposals, RFP, for the operation of the arena canteen and to report back to Council with the results of the process.
Thank you. Council's input, suggestions, or comments? All right. All in favor? Opposed, being none, carried. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, and before the motions and notices of motions, that we'll add in the new bylaws.
Okay. So for item number 11, motions and notices of motion, please go ahead.
So item
Mover.
11, bylaws.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, we'll need a mover and a
And a
seconder.
seconder. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Peter, Councilor Belinda.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 2114, being a bylaw to set the water and sewer rates for the municipality for the year 2025, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, being none, carried.
Okay. Next, we have bylaw 2115, which is a bylaw to appoint an interim part-time chief administrative officer.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Belinda, Councilor Shinniman. Please go ahead.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 2115, being a bylaw to appoint an interim part-time chief administrative officer for the corporation of the Township of Hornepayne, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
I wasn't sure if Richard had anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and now we are okay to continue moving.
Thank you so much. Item 12 on the 12.1, bylaw, mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Shinniman, Councilor Peter, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw number, now it is 2116,
Right.
on the agenda it says 2114. The bylaw number 2116, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Being none, carried. Item 12.2, may I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councilor Peter, Councilor Shinniman, please.
Be it resolved that council does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025 at 7:26 p.m.
All in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well done.